There's one more stop, 8763 Wonderland Drive in the Hollywood Hills. This is one that would be on the Mount Rushmore of the biggest, famous, infamous crimes here in LA.
The Wonderland Murders, drug porn, and the savage slaughter that shook LA.
You're going there with lead pipes. You're going there to leave a mark. Does it ever enter your mind to turn back and not do it? Man, to actually go through with it and then leave, and they all got away with it. Try to get clues out of it.
We have victim number 2, apparent wounds to the head.
And not make it worse, it's just to see what human lives went through. The horrific nature of these murders, the horror, the fear that people lived with every single day.
I slept with one eye open.
These are just real spots where these infamous killers roamed and did what they did. Today, we take you to the edge one more time, from the brutal slayings of the Manson murders to the eerie trail of the Menendez brother murders, from Richard Ramirez's terror to the chaos of O.J. Simpson. Kato and I have walked through it all, but we're not done yet. There's one more stop, 8763 Wonderland Drive in the Hollywood Hills. We're recapping it all, and all I got to say is buckle up, everybody. Welcome. I'm Tom Zenner. You're watching Tom Zenner Scandal, the red hot YouTube channel. This is 1 Degree of Scandalous with the one and only
Snails.
Kato Kaelin. You know, Kato, let me start it off by saying we survived. We went to all these stops. We started last summer.
Yeah.
On the exactly 30-year anniversary of the O.J. Simpson murders. We took it through all those scenes, and then we continue it this year, and we're going to recap it today. Yeah. And we got one more stop along the jury that we're going to show you too. So,
and meeting a lot of great detectives on the way.
Yeah,
we got to talk to them, like people that are part of the crime scenes.
Yep.
So exciting. And today was no different than getting. I think Tom and I we are probably responsible for giving people the chills, eerie chills.
I think
right?
so too.
I get them.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to do. That's what we've done. We want to take you on these steps that the killers walk, these stories that you know so well. You've seen it. It's in pop culture, movies, documentaries, books. So many of us grew up watching this on the news. Mm-hmm. This guy right here in the middle of it, and that started it. And, you know, I know that you were, when I suggested this last summer, hey, let's go visit all the sites of OJ. I think you were kind of okay. And then I said, we're going to start at the McDonald's house, or the McDonald's restaurant, yeah. Right? And that you and OJ went to, and then we hit them all. But what's your takeaway? Because we started with the one that you're most directly involved with, everybody knows, and you lived it. That's part of your life. It changed everything in your life, to all these other ones that you followed.
Yeah, I think the one that with the OJ's is because I've not been to Brentwood since then, and that's like 30 years. Rarely. I mean, I've driven through maybe 2 times in my life. And of course I got married in Brentwood, but the thing is I've never visited those sites. That was with you the first time of going through like the McDonald's drive-through, which by the way, it looked identical probably. It didn't change too much. Mm-hmm. You know, that I didn't want to go to the crime scene itself on Bundy. I've only been at that when Nicole first moved in. I saw it when there's no furniture. Mm-hmm. So, but I didn't want to go that. You did that to go there. And, and then, of course, OJ's house, which is torn down. But on that street, it was chilling to me because that's sort of where I was born, I guess. The old trial was there on Rockingham. And like I said, it was amazing. And then we saw, of course, there's no more Mezzaluna. It's so much has changed, but the Brentwood is still that thriving little very affluent area where everybody's kind of in a clique. Yeah,
you can't say Brentwood without knowing what happened there, right? It changed everything. And yeah, we talked to the detectives along the way. We traced the steps of killers. And, you know, the one thing they all had in common was the horrific nature of them all. I mean, these were some very, very bad crime scenes. And, you know, and then drugs had a lot to do with a lot of them, including our tour that we're going to go on today. But yeah, people can't get enough of it. I'm so glad we got a chance to do it. We've hit most of them here. We haven't done the Hillside Strangler, which we will, because there's some sites to see there and some other cases too. And then we're going to branch out around the country and do the same thing. But I think we ended it with a bang on this tour today.
What I realized that, you know, you and I went to all the sites. What I realized is that the police, the detectives, of what they have to go through with getting back then pagers or whatever the phone call, there's been a murder, going to the scene, roping off a police line, just the investigating process of what they have to do, how much time it takes to find the fingerprints, like we you know, the John's home, how they find certain things. I'm addicted to it, of how good they have to be at their job.
Yeah. And they show up there and it's chaos, but it's their job, right? They have to leave all their emotions at the door and it's just another murder that they have to solve. That's their job. There's a lot more difficulties, complexities involved in some of these cases because of the media coverage, because of who was involved, whether it's a serial killer or a world famous former athlete. So have all and just going there, knowing everything that took place on those streets and the traffic that was going on and how it disrupted the neighbors and everything. It's been an unbelievable journey. Go back into our archive and watch all of them because they're great. Listen to the shows with Gil Carrillo, Tom Lang. We had them all on here and we're going to have more. But we had one more, Kato, that we've done a couple episodes on and we had to go hit this spot and we finally did today. So you want to give everybody, I know I mentioned in the open, but this is one of the OGs. This is one that would be on the Mount Rushmore of the biggest famous infamous crimes here in LA, and we hit it today.
Yeah, like you said, they made movies about it.
Yeah.
They have a movie about it, Wonderland, with Val Kilmer. And I think Michael Connelly, who was one of our guests on a show, has a book about this too.
Yeah, the docuseries was great.
And the thing is, it was 1981, and it's a crime over 44 years ago, still not solved. I mean, you can have opinion about it, but it wasn't actually never solved with someone going to prison for it.
Yeah, no one did any real hard prison time for these nasty, horrible murders. Okay, Wonderland killings. We've talked about it a lot. Now we're going to go there. Kato and I just got back. It was a beautiful day in LA when we went there. Drove up here. It's only, 4 miles from our studio? Mm-hmm. So hop on board, everybody. We're heading to Wonderland Drive. Well, Kato, this is it. 8763 Wonderland Drive here in the Hollywood Hills, Laurel Canyon. And it was right here in 1981 where Hollywood glamour collided head on with a drug-fueled massive amount of carnage. 4 people bludgeoned to death right in that home behind us. This is it. This is the last stop for us, Kato, on location, the Wonderland killings. And you know what? Let's get your first impressions because this is not our first rodeo, but what do you think of when you're over here?
Well, the first thing I think of is all the crime scenes we've gone to, there's no parking. It's a bummer, man.
This is LA. There could be VIP. There could be a valet or something.
Tom and I are on these roads, and you see these cars coming by. We have to scoot because there's room for like one car. We could be victims, man, of not a crime, but of being hit. Would that be ironic?
It's Tom and Kato killed in front of the Wonderland house.
You know, it's the Wonderland house, by the way. These are not people that were, stand-up citizens. Everybody involved in this thing had a problem. We had Joy Miller. She was married to a very wealthy person. Beverly Hills divorced him because she had a heroin habit. She's the one that leased the house. And then she had the people that lived there was Ron Leonis. We have Billy Devereaux. We have John Holmes to be visiting there. And Devereaux's, Ron's wife, Susan. So the great thing about this, this is what kind of person Billy Devereaux was. Not only kind of a hitman, he was dishonorably discharged from the Vietnam War. You know why, Tom?
No.
I'm going to tell you why. Because he hid drugs into the dead U.S. soldiers' bodies and tried to get them into America. This is the kind of person we're dealing with. Ron Lewis was the person interested in over 30 homicides as well as drug smuggling. So, and Susan, she was just not part of the gang, but she was a drug user. So you have all those elements. And I think, Tom, you know what that means. Crime will happen.
Either that or Kato, you were part of that group because that's a lot of detail, or you're very well studied, so very impressive. We're not making light of this at all. Everybody knows what took place here. And this is just a fascinating story. We've covered it. Tom Lang covered it in detail. Now think about it. Tom Lang, this is the house, Kato, that Tom Lang videotaped the crime scene the first time in LA.
1981. It's over 44 years now, and it's still unsolved. You know that. They've had trials. They've had Eddie Nash is supposedly responsible for it. Eddie Nash, you know how it all happened, Tom? Eddie Nash and his bodyguard, Gregory Dials, answered the door, and it was Ron Leonis and Billy Devereaux dressed as cops. And that's how they got it. And so they got $1.2 million in jewelry, drugs, and money.
Well, this was a ticking time bomb, no doubt about it, because, John Holmes is at the center of it all, the star, the porn king back then. This is just truly unbelievable. The words that collided here for this story, you just couldn't make up. This is stranger than fiction, and John Holmes is at the center of all of it. Huge cocaine debt. This dude was so strung out. And he'd do anything to get his next fix. And you don't want to be in debt with Eddie Nash. And that was one of his biggest mistakes. And Eddie Nash knew how to play that. This guy is, he's an evil dude, man. But a businessman that you just don't take chances with. And Holmes was buried. He had to figure something out. So
he helped the Wonderland gang rob Eddie Nash's house, and then he unlocked, helped them get in over here. So he's the linchpin.
Wasn't the first robbery, by the way. That's how they survived. The gang survived by robberies and stealing money to get their drugs. John Holmes, by the way, as Tom Lang said, he wanted to get caught. At the end, he was done running. He wanted to get caught. So he got caught.
Yeah, and the great backstory with that too. You got to go watch the episode we had with Tom Lang because of, they tracked him down in Miami. They were actually running through Tom Lang's old neighborhood where he grew up in, like Coral Gables. It's a fascinating story. Tom Lang always finds himself. He's such a legend. He's in the middle of all these things. But Kato, I'm going to give you my first impressions of just getting here. Here's the street. If you want to look behind me, this is Wonderland Drive. This is it, the infamous street. Kato, I don't know if this sounds weird, but I just love coming to these places because we've studied them so much. We know so much about them. And here we are. And I still get an eerie feeling because we know what happened here. And then we actually know that these are the steps that the killers took. We're going to walk you right over there by those steps and we'll show you. But to think of a story that can live this long, and here we're right here in the middle of it trying to share what everything is like here. But what's your first impressions? Because this is, we've been to a lot of these places.
Well, the impression is that this kind of area always has parties. Even today, nowadays, people in houses have parties because it's got a party atmosphere. And there was a party. The reason that no one discovered the bodies because there's always loud noises coming there. And it took a day later where carpenters heard a screaming of a woman, and the woman was Susan, who was so battered. She's the only survivor. Her face was battered, and she doesn't even have a memory of the crime happening. That's how hard she was hit with a lead pipe.
Yeah.
But that's what I always think of. This area, it's sort of just. I've been up in these hills before.
Mhm.
I actually shot a show right down the road
On Wonderland,
about 4 houses down, and it was for a documentary. But the whole thing was it was a party house, the pool in back, and it's just like a beautiful area. You don't think crime, and it's like. All the scenes we've been to the Menendez house, to the Manson, how we went in Malibu. There's all these beautiful homes, all no parking, and they're all crime related. It blows me away.
And this is hardcore drugs here. This is a heroin hotbed right over here. This is what the Wonderland gang was into. So these guys were heavily addicted. And again, these streets are narrow and they're very winding. So you think about, these are packed with, it's just not one patrol car that's coming here to clean up this mess. With all the first responders and everything to investigate this crime scene. And this is where Tom Lang was here. And they opened the trunk. There was a video camera back there. And they decided on the spur of the moment to videotape the crime scene. And the famous quote was one of the other guys who had already been in to Tom before he walked in says, "Get your galoshes on." That's how bloody and messy it was. And the big thing that they found in this house, of course, was the palm print of John Holmes.
Right.
Well, on the headboard. Right. But because he was using it for leverages, he was using a lead pipe they probably forced him to take a couple of blows to really put him on the spot here because they were going to make Holmes go down for this thing if they could. So, yeah. And Kato, the other just observation about the Hollywood Hills, you hear about it all the time. You don't live here in LA. It's cool. This is a place where a lot of celebrities live, a lot of rock stars. Right. This is it. Always has been kind of faded away. The innocence kind of faded away. But it's not convenient. It is not easy to get up and down these streets. If you need to go anywhere, you need to go to work, you need to go to the airport, you need to go to the grocery store, school. It's not easy. You got to have a lot of patience if you live up here.
Yeah, I think also a lot of celebrities, I think people are fascinated with crime, and they don't mind moving into an area where there's crime, or actually into the house. Eddie Nash, interestingly, said this. He owned a lot of clubs. So people went to his clubs. In his trial, he was a hung jury, and they found out that he paid off a juror. So it was never proven. And that's why it's still unsolved. There was no crime. So he paid a hung jury, and one witness that probably was paid off by Eddie Nash.
Well, I just thought of something, and this comes from hanging out with Kato Kaelin and doing almost 200 episodes. Speaking of a hung jury, there was a hung suspect too. His name was John Holmes.
Yeah.
That was very good. Man, that wasn't bad.
Keep closing a joke in this thing, and I'd love you for that, Top.
It's and John was not here doing any big parts. Very big parts. Yeah, and that's another thing too, because after a crime of this magnitude, this is 44 years ago. This is 1981, July 1st, when this murder happened. These murders happened, and whoever owns the property, because they were renting it, you still got to have someone live here. I mean, lots are very rare. You're not going to let a lot go unbuilt in Los Angeles or in the Hollywood Hills. So somebody has to live here. The history of this, and that's going to affect real estate. I think the last time this thing was sold, it was under $2 million in 2019, which is, these houses are worth more, even though the house doesn't look great. It's a location that you're buying here. So it's just, this is it. This is one of those stories, the 1980, when did the movie come out? 2003, the Wonderland movie with Val Kilmer, the late Val Kilmer came out. Did you watch that?
I have not, and I'm going to watch it probably tonight.
Yeah.
I always wanted to watch that movie because now I'm sort of part of it, and I know so much about it. So I'm going to see how the characters, who plays Eddie Nash, who plays, obviously Kilmer plays John Holmes, I believe, right? You saw it, right? And
Yeah, Val Kilmer played John Holmes for sure.
so it'd be interesting to see that.
And the movie or the docuseries that I watched, it was just so fascinating. It was the one Michael Connelly did, the great crime writer who we had on our show a couple months ago. It was so good. I watched it on Amazon. I think it was 4 parts. But you talk about breaking this thing down. He had Lang on there. He had Lang's partner, Sousa, Robert Sousa, another great detective here, Tom Lang's longtime partner. But we're going to give you a whole little feel and vibe of what this street is like. And that's what we do, Kato. We want to take everybody on these steps, show them the locations, go here and describe how we're feeling. And here, you talked a little as I just kind of.
So I was going to say what Tom said that like for the viewers and all that of Tom and I went to quite a few crime scenes. Went to the OJ, went to Bundy, went to Manson. We went to Menendez. We go to Holmes. What is your favorite? Which one haunts you the most? I think Tom and I have an opinion of what it creeps us out the most. Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. But saying like Jesus, Jesus, oh shit. No need. He's a friendly dog.
Yeah. I don't want to see the mean ones. Why does a dog barking at me on Wonderland Drive seem a little bit more eerie and a little bit more scary? But it just did. Although a Chihuahua would probably scare me, kiddo. We have a great dog. We're a great dog. His name is Spike. And other than that, I wasn't real key to that. Here comes another car. Be careful.
And that's it's a great classic car. The old Corvette here, 63 Corvette.
Yeah.
That's his.
Wow, look at that. Very cool. Very cool. Get a little look at him driving down Wonderland Avenue. So this is it. This is probably, one of the top 5 for sure, top 10. Obviously, a lot of tourists still come by here, and we were really going to, we'll show you with B-roll here what this place looks like. Not a lot of upkeep on a lot of these houses. And Kato, I just respect the people that build these houses, that design them. It's hard building into these canyons, man. It takes forever to bring supplies up here. Just think about it. You're hauling up wood for the floors, linoleum, whatever they used back in the 80s and the 70s when they built these. And the parking is a pain in the butt. Like I said, it's not convenient to live here. This is this is a place where you want to be tucked away a little bit. You're not going to get great cell reception up here either, but there's that aura of living in the Hollywood Hills. It's cool. Not a great place during an earthquake. It is cool. There's better parts than Wonderland Drive. But this is the heart of it, man. We're like right over Hollywood here.
I'm still shook up about that dog attacking me there. You're a dog. I'm a human. I was about to say, but that dog. Obviously, people here have got the animals because they want to have a good watchdog, and that obviously was one that really didn't like Tom. Really didn't like Tom. Here comes more of these cars. Like I said, it's like the roads are so small. Cars got to wait for one car to pass, and then the other car will come through here.
If someone lives in this neighborhood, Kato, they're not going, I wonder what those people are doing over here, right? If Kato and I are here, you know what we're doing here. But I mean, you just got to get used to it if you live near a scene of such a famous and horrific crime. And that was this one on steroids, the Wonderland killings, July 1st, 1981. No one really did 1 day of jail time for the actual murders, Kato. They got Eddie Nash for a little bit. John Holmes was, he was detained and in jail for a while, but you know what? No one was talking. And like you said, there was bribery. There was so much crazy stuff going on. Holmes died of AIDS in 1988. Eddie Nash died, not long after that. So that's it.
And the thing is, Tom, everything when it revolves around people that are doing drugs, their motivation is they have to get more drugs. More drugs leads to how do we get the money? More love really leads into crime, like robbery. And I think, Tom, this is that alleyway. If you can look at that shot there, you can see. I think that's where he snuck in, right through the front. They didn't go to the front. There's a side door. They talked about Tom Lang talked about a side door where the Eddie Nash probably entered.
Because it's not a huge property. It's what, 3 levels. So
Let's go a little bit in back there.
Sure.
See it.
And we'll go peek at that. But you know what? You needed a guy like John Holmes that has been here that could tell them where to go, where the bedrooms are, right? And you mentioned, everything is fueled by drugs and trying to get money. And these guys aren't exactly contributing to society. It's not like they had good jobs or anything like that. So it's one score to the next, get the money, similar to Richard Ramirez, same story there. Do whatever you have to do. You go, you rob, and And that's what, and this Wonderland gang, man, they were hardcore, man. That their whole existence was basically being criminals. That's what they did.
Well, supposedly now this is also, which I think is a fact, is that John Holmes actually went to Eddie Nash's house that day that they the Devereaux disguised as cop with Leonis. He went there 3 times to make sure the doors were unlocked. So, like I said, they it's still a planned out, and Eddie Nash kind of knew who was involved in this crime, and they paid for it.
Yeah,
Their lives.
Eddie Nash is not taking any prisoners, and the one thing he wanted to do was he wanted to make this as violent and send a message and send a signal to anybody that might think of crossing him. A message received, no question about it. You mentioned he owned the nightclubs. He did. John Holmes actually had his fingerprints, sort of like the Hollywood Walk of Fame, like they do in front of the Man Chinese Theater. Like in one of his clubs in Hollywood, you have John Holmes' fingerprints or palm prints down on there. How ironic his palm prints, were also here. But
I believe quite a few women had its prints on its penis. Can we say that on his penis?
you just did. I made fun of it, but no. Started. I did, and I figured you'd have to one up me here. A lot more traffic here on Wonderland than I would expect. This is one of those crimes too, where it's not like there's really innocent victims. Now it's horrible. The main gang leader, Leonidas, he wasn't even killed, was he? No.
I think he was killed.
Okay,
Where to find out?
not all the members of the gang were killed.
Susan wasn't killed.
Yeah, Susan. And man, is this something you even want to survive? I mean, because you mentioned her skull was like destroyed. Yeah. It took, months and months and months of therapy for her even to appear, to testify.
She had no memory of the crime. That's how hard she was sitting there. She had brain damage.
Yeah. All right. So this is it. The infamous Wonderland Drive. This pretty much caps it. We've hit most of them. We will go to more. There's more that we will, and we're going to follow up on all these stories that we've been doing with more guests on them. But I think we've hit the spots.
Yeah, I think Tom and I are going to say we're going to ask you what's the next crime scene we should go to, and we're probably going to do a lot of traveling. So it's hard. It's always interesting that Tom and I Tom with the camera here, we kind of do it in our own way. Of people, we're not afraid to get yelled at. We're not afraid of this. We do it to you. And I still remember Tom, the only guy I knew, he climbed the gate at Robert Kardashian's place. So Tom did that.
Okay, they're backing in here. Okay, we're going to stop it here. Yeah, head back to the studio.
All right, so there it is. Hope you enjoyed that, everybody. And let me just say this. Save your comments about the technical, the audio, all that stuff. I never promised to be perfect. Zeus apparently was too busy to pack up and come out there with us. So Kato and I did this, and I wanted to kind of have the feel of just kind of be there a little bit raw.
Tom, it's an iPhone 16. You're fine.
Yeah, I know. I thought so too. So anyway, that was great. Look, we talked about it while we were there, just how we felt and some of our impressions. But anything now that you've had a little time to think about it and let that one sink in?
Yeah, you know what? Is people didn't see this on camera because we met a neighbor, the next door neighbor, and the next door neighbor's name is Clark, nice as can be guy, and he recognized me, but we asked to get on camera, and I don't blame him. He was hesitant about getting on. I kind of reluctant. I don't want to do it, but he appreciated that we were there, and he said, "People, it's just a rental now."
Yeah. Well, it was a rental when the Wonderland gang lived there too. There has been a lot of upkeep, as you saw, right? I mean, they haven't put a lot of money into renovating that place at all.
Yeah. So it was, he didn't have any kind of bizarre feeling how I would myself living next to a murder scene.
Maybe
I don't like it, but he seemed like a nice enough guy, and
he was cool.
Yeah.
He reminded me, we've met some really cool people on these tours. Remember the postal guy at Rockingham?
Everybody's been cool. I mean,
he was amazing. And we had Tony was fantastic at the Menendez brothers' house. I mean, and it's LA. So the next door neighbor that lives next to the Wonderland killing house, he's used to it. He's lived in the hills for 20 some years. It's, been there right next to him for so long. And you just don't get shocked by those things in LA anymore. Here's one of my takeaways from being at the Wonderland house. Is to think, and that's the thing we do, Kato. We take our viewers and everybody that watches this show and loves this show. We want to show you the steps that these guys took. Because here's my thought: you're going there with lead pipes. I mean, you're not going there with a gun and a silencer. You're not going to strangle anyone. You're going there to leave a mark, right? To just put like the most grisly scene you could possibly do, and those guys could do it. You take those pipes out of the car and you walk up those steps. Does it ever enter your mind to turn back and not do it? Think how many things would be different if the Manson killers didn't do it, if Richard Ramirez got lost one day or hit by a bus, or just like, how do How do they motivate themselves
I think
to go and do it?
They're motivated to kill already. I don't think there's no sign of them wanting to back off. They're in to do their job, and they know the house. They know the house is known for partying, so they know the neighbors aren't. They're going to think it's another night, and so even though they're screaming that, the neighbors would say, "Oh, that this house is always filled with screaming." So I think Eddie Nash was. I think they're just motivated, and they want to go and kill.
Kato, I walk out to my car where I live in Manhattan Beach in the middle of the night. And, it's a nice place.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be outside that long at 2 a.m. Imagine, you're walking up the street on Wonderland or all these other sites we took you to, and then you have to like carry through with the deed. Now on that one, there's a few of them doing it, from Nash's bodyguard to whoever else. John Holmes obviously was most likely there. But man, to actually go through with it and then leave, and did anybody see it? Is anybody coming? Do I hear sirens? Are there cameras? But they all got away with it for at least a little while.
Yeah, I think it's because they knew the routine. They knew the routine of the house. I think that made it easier for them to have a crime. I think it is. I think they know there are people that deal with drugs, and they know they're going to be there, and they're possibly stoned out of their mind already.
Yep. And I just remember Tom Lang sitting right here a couple months ago talking about filming that crime scene for the first time, and that quote that one of the other detectives or one of the cops that was there said, "Do you got your galoshes?" That's how bad it was. And as a cop, as a Tom Lang, his partner, they got to walk in there and look at all this and then just try to get clues out of it and not make it worse, and just to see what human lives went through.
Yeah.
And all these stories have that same thing in common, the horrific nature of these murders.
Right. And the thing is, with the galoshes line, is that's 1981. So just think of from 2025 now, of the difference of technology, of footprints or anything, blood, the OJ's, Bruno Maglia's, whatever they're called. Bruno Mali's. So it's just all these things that they didn't have the technology yet for, but, they solved the crime. But I really think it was the people that got killed were all about drugs, how they get their next fix, how they find money to rob so they can get more drugs. Yeah. And even Joey Miller was the who rented the house, was leasing it at that time, was a heroin addict.
Yeah. And plus, you're not dealing with a lot of brain cells with a lot of these killers either. They're not exactly thinking of covering all their tracks. Somehow they still get away with it. And there's drugs involved in this thing. So it's drug fueled, and they're there on a mission. All right. So here's what we're going to do. And we need your help on this. This is going to be fun. So I'm going to pick 10 different categories, and we're going to share with you our lasting impressions, or rank some of these sites that we've gone and speak to the most compelling moments, the biggest memories that we had here. Load up our comments with this too, with what you think, because I'm gonna ask Kato these questions. He's gonna answer them. I'm gonna give you my version of my interpretation from what we saw, but I'm really interested in just loading up these comments. So let's go. I want to hear everybody's opinion here.
I don't know the questions beforehand,
Nope.
so this is straight hearing it from Tom for the first time.
All right, so here's the first one, Kato. Which one of all the scenes that we went to was the most haunting location? Which left the deepest emotional or psychological imprint for you? And I'm glad we're starting this one, because the first tour we went on hit close to home. You hadn't been to those places in 30 years, and it's obviously an indelible memory for you. Yeah. So you don't have to say anything related with the OJ, but which one was the one that you would consider the most haunting location?
Okay, so the most haunting location, you would think, I think it's only because, like you said, it was the close to home. And by the way, they all had their own little special haunting for me with a memory, but it was when you went to Bundy and I waited in the car, because it was I was freaked out. I didn't want to go there, and I saw the show. I watched it afterwards, and I wanted to face the fear of it. I went to the other places, but that was the most haunting, to know that Nicole and Ron lost their life right there in Bundy, and you were right there. It was so impactful that they changed the address. They redid the front area where the tiles were. The whole entrance is different, to give it the curb appeal of the bloody the bodies laying there has been changed. That was that one, the whole show, but that one spot of that show. And as far as haunting, if I can go into something that's haunting me. And I think we'll get into, because you have 10 of the questions, and I'll only answer it, but I'll get into it later when I think you're going to get to it. The one that probably scared me the most was at David Oman's house. and we'll get into that. It's just something about it just
Okay.
rubbed me the wrong way.
All right.
And I know David said they're good spirits, but
All right.
someone can watch back of that. We'll get
Save
into
that because I'm really interested to see what it was that lasting impression on you, because there was a whole bunch of stuff that we absorbed when we were there. That was an amazing tour. All right, for me, you had mentioned Bundy, and I think what you're specifically talking about is the alley. That's the one part you didn't want to go into. That's the part I did go into. Now, the front of the house, we know what happened there. And that's where we shot a lot of that episode. So you can go back and watch that. But there was something about that alley for me. And I know you didn't see it and you chose not to. But I could just picture OJ's Bronco parked there. I could see him dressed in black getting out. I can see within a minute or moments or whatever it was, 2 lives snuffed out by this guy. I don't know if he went there to spy on her again like he normally do, what triggered him that day. But I could see that white Bronco right there. I could see the route he took around the side. And then I just kept thinking Ron Goldman walking down the street, Nicole coming to the front door, and it just all happening from there. And then he's in that alley so he can get out. And then history, news, true crime, pop culture, reality TV, it all was born at that moment, essentially. And that still sticks with me, just being there, because it's such a beautiful neighborhood. I mean, beautiful tree-lined neighborhood. Her place was nice, 3-story. I mean, a nice that she wanted you to live in and you chose not to, but I'm going to go with that one. It was the alley on Bundy from me.
And it's something that sticks out of my mind that you said that you heard Harvey Levin tell a story one day about that alley, that he was parked there in a limousine.
Yeah. So this happened.
Yeah. So you told a story, but that's probably, he had the same feeling as you, how haunting that is. So,
well, and he was parked behind it. Now, this was after the verdict, and he and his producer were in the car just by chance. They went down there. They saw a limo, and it was OJ there, and they followed him all the way to Rockingham. You can go watch that TMZ special. But Harvey, did a deep dive on that one with his opinions and everything he thought. So that was interesting. And so that alley at Bundy was something that I'll never forget. All right, most shocking story details. So think of all the elements that go into these stories, because these aren't one-offs, right? All these things had, multiple episodes, multiple chapters to them. One thing led to another, and everybody remembers all the details. So which one stands out for you?
When we had Gil Carrera in here, I think what stands out to me is how the media they knew before the cops sometimes knew to get in the right airplane as them going up to San Francisco. And the whole case was solved by that interview of the cousin, I think, that Gil said, who finally said who Richard Ramirez was, and they finally had a name and a picture for it. And I think the way he described that, how it changed everything, and all the fear in L.A. was answered on that one trip. And I think Laurel Erickson was on the plane from NBC. So I think, like I said, Tom, there's so many great ones that we had. The galoshes line, there's certain lines, but that of the Night Stalker case was really compelling, the way Gil described that. Yeah.
And for me, for the most shocking story details, I'm going to go with the first murder house in the Charles Manson Helter Skelter one, and that's the Gary Hinman house, because that place was so remote up in the canyons, and then to think that he was a hostage for 3 days, and once you really dive in and hear some of these details, and the other thing about that one is Charles Manson was actually there. Unlike Cielo Drive, he was there. He had either a machete or a sword, a long blade, and he sliced that guy's ear. And to think this guy, this almost like this satanic, devilish, horrific creature, Charles Manson, was actually there. And they got that taste for blood on that night, and they held this guy hostage for 3 days, and it was just chaos and craziness in there.
It's sort of biblical, because Manson sometimes compared himself to Jesus, and Jesus one time said the Roman guard had his ear off and Jesus healed him, all that. I mean, who knows as Manson if he's feeling that I can heal the ear, but I think he said Tex. Didn't he say Tex finish him off now?
I can't remember. I can't remember who finished him off there. I mean, they were all, they kept him alive for a little bit. You never know,
but he was insane. He thought he was a god. So we have to, he thought Charlie was a god, and he had his own flock of these
worshippers, followers, whatever it was. And that's where they, started writing blood on the wall.
Yeah.
I never heard the Jesus analogy there with the ear, but that was, I'm kidding.
No, but I like that you said it, because I know that, we had stories that he thought he was a god. And anyways, I brought that up because that was a Bible story that I remember growing up.
You brought it up because you're Kato Kaelin.
Yeah,
and you're funny, and that's what you do. All right, load up the comments. Give me your thoughts on those two. Okay, here's the next one. The most chilling frozen in time moment. So which location felt like time stopped, right? Like stepping into history that the moment you arrived there, like nothing changed. It was almost like you went back 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it was.
Yeah, well, from that's going to be really easy. It's you taking me on the every site that we saw with the OJ. It was as if, I think I mentioned the show, it was the next day to me. It was there was no 30 years. It was identical feeling, and it brought me right back. And it made the memories come up, even like, oh my, now I remember this of the McDonald's drive. Everything just kind of came right back because I guess psychologically you're at the same place and you remember everything.
And you hadn't been there. And let me just carry that point forward because I was there with you at McDonald's. And when we did the OJ Saga tour last summer, that was the first place we went to, the McDonald's, and you literally had not been there. And it's the one on Santa Monica Boulevard, about 26th Street. And, McDonald's don't change that much. It's still right there. And I remember you walking us through the drive-through, like where his Bentley pulled up with you in it. And to think that what was on OJ's mind at that time? How do I create an alibi? And I got Kato Kaelin here. He was using you. I mean, essentially, and you don't eat burgers. You had a chicken sandwich that night.
Chicken sandwich.
And that was such a key part of his story that he was going to use to try to get away with this thing.
Yeah, and then it brings up the point after we did that of taking the drive back to Rockingham, where I thought we're going to eat together. The rest of it, he had one burger that he ate immediately, another one, and that was probably the most chilling. That he was at the Bentley's door while I was 20 yards away by his kitchen door, and I say, "Oh, he doesn't want me to be with him." And that was, and then we find out later that he said, "You know that I ate in the kitchen with you, Kato." And
like prompting you.
He wanted to say that that's a blatant lie. That's not true.
Yeah.
So that was answered the question. That was the most what stood out. Time standing still.
Let me ask you a question about that, because I remember talking about this last year and a couple times on the show. This is hours after the murder, right? He comes back from Chicago, and you're in the kitchen at Rockingham, and he's trying to use this McDonald's appearance in his favor. I mean, you had to make a quick decision. Not that you would ever lie, but if you had said something other than what was really true, or OJ or whatever, because he's got a commanding presence, right? But did that go through your mind? Like, no, let me set you straight right here, Orenthal. That's not what happened.
I didn't say it that way, but there was a bunch of people at the house. OJ was not arrested or anything yet. It's just that he said, "Come in the kitchen with me," and he pulled me away from all the people. He goes, "You remember that we were in the kitchen eating?" And that moment, that's the day I left too. Where I was planning on getting out of the house completely, because I said there's a blatant lie. Because no, OJ, no, you didn't eat with me there. You at your car. And then he said, "Oh, okay." He knew in his face. He knew I was not going to lie for him. So that was it.
Yep. And the other thing too is, he's a narcissist, sociopath, according to Tom Lang, all that. And he's a guy that's used to getting his way and being persuasive. So think about that. For the last 15, 20 years before that, he's O.J. Simpson. You're almost going to go along with, yeah, sure, O.J., yeah, that's what happened, right? Except this was life and death. Yeah. This was the murder of his ex-wife. And at that moment, he realized he can't just plant a seed and somebody's going to take it and just collaborate with him, right? That's crazy, man.
And we'll go into the other ones, but I always wondered how his defense lawyers, if they knew and they said, "We can get you out of this," I wonder how much they persuaded him to say, "We're going to get you out of this." That he knew he did it, but he said, "If they can get me out of this, this will be great." And I think he kind of believed the lie more and more.
Okay, for me, the most chilling frozen in time moment, it's easy for me, just like it was for you, was Spawn Ranch. Because we go there and, did it look like anything changed there? And then you could just almost like feel and sense what was going on behind that gate where we were, and kind of in that canyon a little bit, not far behind us, that was blocked off. But yeah, that to me seemed exactly the same. If you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they recreated that pretty well. But man, I could just picture that. This is a perfect spot for Charles Manson to groom his cult, to get away. Nobody sees you. You can do whatever the hell you want over there. The drugs, practice your little murders and your escape plans and everything that was going on, and the hippie just craziness that was going on there. But for me, that felt like that could have been yesterday. Like it would have looked exactly the same.
You know what? I wonder if the other places have, maybe not in California. I just wonder if there's other communes that are just kind of like that, with one leader and has followers and, follows the same, Manson plan.
Yeah. Okay, you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, this one is the most Hollywood infused crime scene. So what felt like you were a Hollywood set, Showtime, you've seen fictional versions of this story, and now we're standing right there. It could be a place that you actually lived, whatever it is. But which one stands out to you as the most Hollywood infused crime scene?
It's Bundy, because it was. I just remember the tiles and the bodies of Nicole and the bloody scenes and how pictures had later been leaked. So it just became, because I was connected to it, it was just so many times it played over in the media, that crime scene over and over and over and over. It became part, I think it became so common, people got used to it. And it was so impactful. All of them are terrible things. Like we went in the Night Stalker tour, knowing if someone could go through the house that was the murder of the 89-year-old woman or whatever, that is impactful because the poor woman there. But I've got to go with the crime scene itself.
Okay, for me, same story, different location. It was when we were at Robert Kardashian's house in the Valley, and that place to me, I mean, I'm thinking, holy crap, this is where the Bronco chase started. This is where the suicide note was written. This is where Chloe, Kim, Courtney, this is where they were. This, to me, that was just like a Hollywood moment right here, because the Hollywood elements, that Robert Kardashian lent into this thing, which are legit. And that's why the younger generation is, enthralled by this story now. But to me, it was his house. And because the Bronco chase to me was just such a big part of that. That's why it's so great whenever we have Tom Lang in here thinking it was his voice, trying to keep OJ from shooting himself on that drive on the 405. But to me, it was Kardashian's house because, I mean, that was the craziest day, June 17th. And it started right there. Right. If he had just turned himself in, or if he hadn't been staying there, none of that would have happened.
Do you think, it's hard to prove, but do you think that Kardashian knew OJ get a 10-minute head start, go in the Bronco? You think that he just left with AC and didn't tell anybody?
Okay, my gut says he did not tell Robert Kardashian. Number two, Robert Kardashian knows a lot. Okay, so Robert Kardashian was his friend. He would have done anything probably to help him. But I don't know. I almost think that had to be a decision. Now, keep in mind, Robert Kardashian wasn't a practicing attorney at the time. Remember that, Kato? Yeah. He had lost his license. Right. He had to get his license back to get back into that thing. He was more of a deal maker or a fixer. But I don't know, man. I think AC's the guy. You make that quick split second decision. I don't know, because Robert had to read that note. He's not a good enough actor to read that note with the shock that I think he felt.
Right. Well, and then again, it was planned to leave because of the gun in the car, the mask, the $10,000 in cash that we never put in evidence. With Tom Lang saying this is what they found in the car. Yeah. So I think it was pre-planned. Kardashian in on it, I don't know, but definitely AC and OJ.
Yeah, so drop your comments in. This is the perfect time, right? Because you've gone on these journeys with us, so I'm interested to see what our viewers say. It's our opinion. And this is great. Okay, here's one more, Kato. The most emotional realization. So which visit stirred the strongest emotional response? Sorrow, fear, reflection, empathy, whatever. What spot did that for you?
Well, only because it deals with death. It had nothing to do with me as far as being in a house, but it brought up the memories because it was at David Omen's house. I think walking down the hallways, it could have been anybody's spirit that could be coming there. I know we talked about a Cielo Drive, but it could have been the spirit of like a Ron and Nicole. Like it could be anybody's spirit. And his house just had this like I said, he's been on all these ghost shows. I could feel that something wasn't right in that house, and how he lives there, I have no idea. Tom and I heard that hush, the voice coming and saying it's as plain as day, hush. The spiral staircase, it was just that. And I smelt ghost urine. Or was that the dogs? I don't know if that was the dogs or a ghost, but you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
it had such a spooky feel, and whether it was Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, in the house. It could be. It was on Cielo Drive, but it is eerie. And I like I said, I could not spend a night in that house.
I'm with you. That's not going to be my pick, but I know what you're saying, because if you go in there with any, if you're skeptical at all, okay, I've not really met a lot of ghosts in my life or spirits, and I knew the reputation of that house, and I figured in my mind something was going on. Now, I was there the day before, and according to David Omen, when I was there talking about you coming, he feels that stirred something up with the spirits. And when David says it, I think he truly means it. Okay. And then of course it was the birthday of Nicole when we were there filming. And yeah, you feel something there. There was a point when we were walking in that house where I felt we were in Salt Lake City or Denver, where there was altitude, like the walls were coming in. And then you look at the video and that wine bottle falling or that board spinning around and dropping. You can't make that up.
I mean, you can't make up a black cat just going throughout our shots. You can't make that up either, whether or not he has the black cat because it represents Halloween or an evil. But it was just this feeling. You have to be there. I know people think, oh, that's so corny and hokey. I would believe that too, hearing it. But I was in the house, and I definitely felt something was a presence of something. And David believes they're all good ghosts. They're not trying to hurt you.
You know what confirmed it for me, though, is when Zeus got so scared that he started, hiding under a bed. Remember that part? He could really feel it.
Take over the whole camera thing.
Incredible. Okay, my most emotional realization for me was the spot where Richard Ramirez was caught, where the neighborhood and the city could take a sigh of relief knowing that this sick psycho was caught, that the game was over, the horror, the fear that people lived with every single day that was gripping them. I still don't understand why people didn't lock their doors at night. I know it was a heat wave all summer, but to think of that spot where they couldn't catch him and and you never knew where he'd hit next, and the randomness of what he did, and to think that he goes down right on that spot where we were standing and he's begging for mercy. He's going, no mas, right? He just wanted it to be over at that point.
Yeah, I think the impact of that is just to this day, the reason I lock every door is because of him. Mm-hmm. I've always thought about that I put a wooden thing by the sliding doors. I've got my door, another lock that I put in there. It's all because of Richard Ramirez. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget it. Whoever would keep their windows open. And our first shot of that was the poor woman that it was connected to another house. Like, how did he know? Did he know this woman could not defend herself? Yeah. And awful. Yeah. And of course the girl, the way the story was told of her peeking up, the first one, and he shot her in the head is just
where you make it beg for the life.
Just certain things that make who's evil, who play the devil, Richard Ramirez.
Yeah, if you come to LA, you can go visit these sites yourself. If you don't live here, that's our job, is to kind of tell you what it was like, and all these places are just the realness and the random. Like, there's a real house where Richard Ramirez went in for the first time and killed somebody. There's the real spot on the street in East LA where he was caught. Yeah. The Manson, all those stories, Menendez brothers. These are just normal, abnormal in some ways, but these are just places that are here. You think of this larger than life stories, that, oh man, it's like a movie set, or it's like not real, but these are just real spots where these infamous killers roamed and did what they did, right?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think with the Menendez is how we were there, how the person obviously that's buying the house now knows they've got to gut it, they've got to start all over, and I like David's house. Tony, who we met, construction worker, they say they hear weird things and noises. I just think that whatever house you're in, like if it was myself, you can maybe in your mind make up these things because you're so connected to it and you think about it all the time, and you can maybe imagine that I just heard something. The whole scariness of there was a killing in this house.
Yeah. All right, 5 down. We got 5 more to go. Okay, some of these are a little bit lighter, but these are some good ones. That'll stir some good comments. All right, here's the category, Kato. No way I'm sleeping here.
Well,
no way I'm sleeping here. Which crime scene house would you absolutely never want to live in, even if it was free, even if you could just crash there? What do you think?
Well, I mentioned that staying at Davis is not a crime scene, so I will eliminate that one, but that is my scariest one to live at. I would never, ever, ever be in the Bundy house, ever. So that was I guess it's really not that much lighter, like you promised me, but that would be it for me.
Yeah.
Just because I'm connected to it.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so for me, the Hinman house is one of those just because it's, eerie and random and remote. But I'm going to go with the first murder of Richard Ramirez in that neighborhood that we were in, and that house was small. Some of Rockingham's big. The Menendez house is huge, right? But this house is tiny. There's only X amount of rooms there. And then like you couldn't go in any part of that house and not know that Richard Ramirez was somewhere there.
Yeah.
So that's the one I'm saying, no mas, no good. I'm not staying there. Doesn't matter. Forget it. Forget it. All right. Most movie-worthy location. Which site felt like a Hollywood set the moment you arrived?
Boy, was I think only because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was such a successful film. I just think when you and I were on Cielo Drive, I just think we didn't go into the actual home, but that whole episodes of Gary Hinman's house to driving to Spawn Ranch and driving, it is a set because it was a movie. And then our guest that we had, gosh, I forgot his name, Anthony, Michael
Connolly? No, who?
No, the Tarantino hired him. Scott Michaels.
Yeah.
Scott Michaels, of just describing it, made it such a Hollywood feel. I would think I think it's that you and I on Cielo Drive, just the memory I have of you and I walking up that street, because I kept thinking of the image of where they parked their car, where they killed Abigail Folger on the lawn. It's just, we did everything, by the way, during the day. So we weren't scared, but can you imagine if we ever shot at night? I think it'd be a completely different feel.
Oh, it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you could get me out there. No, it'd be totally different vibe.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be
because and by
cracking
the way,
jokes.
I do that because there's no Tarantino put lights in that street. There are no lights. It is completely dark at night. It's dark. And anything could come out of a bush. We were there.
Yeah.
Anything could pop out at you in the bush, and no one would hear you scream.
Exactly. And they're winding roads, and Cielo Drive is very, very narrow. And, you know, and plus you've just seen it so many times. Okay, I like that one. I'm going to go with 8763 Wonderland Drive, where we just were. I'm going to go with that one because the house hasn't changed. The Menendez house was under renovation when we were there. The Robert Kardashian house, you know, had flipped over a few times. Even, you know, Tate and Polanski's house has been gutted and it is totally different. I'm going to go with that one because that thing just sits right there. You could see where these, these killers, man, would just get out of that car, walk right up there, and not much has changed. It was interesting how the number for the street had wore away. Yeah. It was on the curb, and we could faintly see it. Remember, like,
I don't think it wore away. I think they did that on purpose.
Do you think so? Probably.
Yeah, because the other side of the street, it's clear as can be. I just think that there's so many people that film there, and they go. It's probably part of a tour also.
That's another one of that house reminds me of like the Idaho Killings house, where it's just standing there. It's got that distinct look. You know, there's multiple levels and multiple deaths.
You know what? Now that you say that, you know what it reminds me of? Now that we saw the house in the front of it the way it is, like you said, it hasn't changed. It reminds me a lot of the Amityville horror house. How the windows, how that in that house it was those French, those colonial windows, but it's got that same look. The front of it is exactly the same as it was in 1981.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, exactly, because it has that 70s style, right? 70s, 80s, whenever that thing was built. All right, here's the next one. Best view, worst history. Which crime scene had surprisingly gorgeous surroundings or real estate, but you just can't separate the view from the violence of what took place in that home, structure, building, etc.?
Well, I think we might agree on this one. It has to be the hills of Cielo Drive, just the gorgeousness. And by the way, it was Jeff Franklin's house, so he redone the whole house. It was a palace. I think it's at $85 million or something. So that being there, I was there on that property, seeing the sights, and when LA's lit up, it is beautiful. I mentioned it's the scariest, but also it's, if nothing ever happened in that street, you would never think about it twice. You just go, my God, this real estate, this is the most gorgeous area I've ever seen. And it was the most gorgeous house. Yep.
Okay, great one. Here's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the Menendez house in Beverly Hills on Elm. That one, to me, I mean, that is a picturesque, prototypical Beverly Hills neighborhood. Huge trees, big lots, wide streets, peaceful. I mean, it was just a chill vibe, relaxing. You're close to everything. You know, you're close to Sunset, you're close to UCLA, you're close to Rodeo Drive, Century City, everything. It's a launching pad. You're right there. House looked great street, but man, think about what went on there, especially like the brothers walking in the front door, just walking right in there with this plan that they thought they were going to get away with, and they didn't. And go back and watch our episode with Anna Marie Baralt. Yeah. Great episode we had a week or so ago.
By the way,
and amazing. And so
the comments, as you saw, were amazing for everybody. Just loved Anna Maria.
Yeah, and I'm pulling for them to get out. I really am. I think they've done 30 plus years. We could talk about that another day, but that was a great episode. But for me, that was the one that fit that category. All right, as far as views. Okay, here's one, Kato. We're moving on here. A case that you'd most want to solve yourself. If you could go full detective, which case or detail of it, maybe that's unknown, would you dive into to finally solve?
That's a, it's sort of like solve it. I really think the Simpson trial was solved, even though he's acquitted. I think that was solved. So it's tough to say that one. I just think having a guest of Tom Lang here with all the evidence dismissed, that he did perfect detective work, so it was solved. But if I have to solve a crime that wasn't, it's sort of that's a really tough one for me because I don't know. It's sort of like I guess the only unsolved one really is Eddie Nash or the. It'd have to be that one.
Well, and they know who did it, right? It's just that nobody did any time.
Yeah,
or maybe there was a particular part of a story that you wish you knew more details about.
Yeah, I would think if a juror was paid off, how that all worked out for a hung jury, that it was that the case was thrown out. It was a hung jury, never went back to trial. So I'd like to. I guess I would solve that one.
Here's the one I would do. I would somehow make all the evidence that wasn't used in the OJ trial that Tom Lang talked about. You've been there with him, warehouses, and find out exactly what happened, right? You hear all these alternative theories. Was somebody else involved? Probably not, whatever. But just blood that was found in the house that wasn't shown, right? Just all this other stuff. I would just like to know exactly how he did it. Did he use the same Bronco? Because when the cops investigated that Bronco, there wasn't that much blood in it, considering he came back from a double murder, right? What are the things that we don't know about that case that are still dangling out there? Because there is stuff out there, Kato.
Yeah.
Like the guy that can answer all those questions is A.C. Cowlings. He'll never talk, but just to think of all that evidence, what that meant for the story.
That's a great one. But I think the one thing that I'd like to find out what it was, if Skip Junis, who was one of our guests, I'd like to know what was in the bag at the airport. I think that would solve everything right there.
What was in that bag?
What was in the bag, and why would someone put their arm halfway down and throw something in the garbage? And that's the one thing that kind of sticks out, that Skip Junis, who was so credible, that he saw this happening. And did the garbage, Tom, they didn't know till 3 days later, I think he said. So that is probably the murder weapon.
Sure. Oh, where did the murder weapon go?
Yeah,
what did he do with it?
That would solve everything.
The cut on your finger, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously, we kind of know what happened there.
Yeah, so you're right with that stuff, too. Find out all these clues and evidence that was never used. But that knife and when Skip Junis described that, that's...
Yeah. Here's the other thing I'd like to know, because when we went to the Oman house, David Oman's house, clearly you and I agree and believe that there are some spirits in there, and he's got 25 cameras running 24/7 that grab some of that paranormal behavior. What happened on that lot? Because I don't believe it's just random that these spirits picked that location. There wasn't a house there at the time. What happened? I mentioned that during the episode. Was a knife? Was something discarded there? Like, I thought maybe, is this a place where, the female voice, and there's been some Jay Sebring connected things with the spirits there at that house. Did Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring go for a walk every morning and spend some time on that lot, right? Because it's about 150 feet from the gate. It's not far.
Yeah.
Something had to happen on that plot of land.
Well, David did mention something. Remember down in the cellar we went there with all the mud was? And he has that dollar bills and the wines that are there. He said that it was an Indian burial ground. And that's why he pays respect to it with that. So
yeah. I just think it has to have something to do with the Tate murders. Right. Yeah. And because it's so close, and just think, Well,
they walked up that
They
road.
walked down there. They walked right past it, probably there and back. So yeah, that one is go back and watch that episode. That was a fun one.
Yeah, it was great.
All right. One more. How about the least haunted or the most haunted? That's kind of obvious, but was there any other, did you feel any other areas that we visited on all these things may have been haunted?
Only thing I think it was haunted is only because we talked to Tony at the Menendez house, that he said the workers have definitely heard noises, creaking. I mean, did they really hear them? Menendez, Kitty, and Jose? I don't know. But that the way they're very convincing, but hands down, David Owen's house is it. That's it. That's definitely spirits in that house.
Yeah, Tony said, they definitely hear things in the Menendez house.
Yeah.
I believe him. He was sincere when he was talking to us. And then the Wonderland Drive house, they say that has spirits too.
Yeah.
And I could imagine that the brutality of that crime and the rage that was going on in there.
You think that the sites we saw, because they're so high profile, that's why people are obviously drawn to them, because there's a murder in LA every day. I don't know how many homicides there are. And we went to the sites that it just seems it's always about wealth or drug related, but always high profile, and money is the from Beverly Hills, Menendez, Rockingham, Brentwood, Wonderland, the top of the hills of Los Angeles, Hollywood Hills. The only one is probably Richard Ramirez hit places that he knew that he could get into from. There's no security. Meaning that there's just homes that he could hop a fence and easily get into a front door.
And that one's not wealth, but it's money. He needed money to live day to day. So he'd ransack these places and steal. And then when it was time to commit another murder, he would. All right. Well, that concludes the tour. That was awesome. If you think we've missed any spots in LA, we only go for the big ones, though. Don't give us some random stuff.
Well, I'm interested to find out what you want to do for the Hillside Strangler of all the sites. If they're automotive, was it automotive business?
Yeah, he had a mechanic shop where those two guys worked out of. The other, what I want to get is Frank in here, right? The lead detective on that one that solved that, and then work with Gil Carrillo on Richard Ramirez and the Night Stalker. So we're gonna get him, and then we're gonna branch out, man. We're gonna go on some field trips, because this is where most of them, the big ones, are, but they're all over the country, and there's a lot of other famous places that we're going to go see.
Okay, now Tom and I just did Wonderland, and Tom opened his back trunk of his car, and in the back I saw you had a case of wine, a case of Pinot and some Cabernet. And you promised that we're going to get Gil and Tom and have a glass of wine and do a wine around the room of crime, wine crime. Is that what that's for? Is there another party going on?
Well, you said a glass of wine. There's going to be more than one glass.
What I saw?
No, I'm kidding. No, we're going to
the bottle.
We're going to do multiple episodes with Gil Carrillo and Tom Lang. Okay, that's coming up. I'll have a nice sippy cup of Kool-Aid for Zeus. Okay, I need you still working over there and making sure the shows go off without a hitch. But we're going to enjoy some nice Cabernet. You're going to have a drink with us, aren't you?
I'm going to Uber.
Are you going to get into the cups?
I'm going to get the cups that did that. Wasn't Gil's drink tequila, right? He said that?
He mentioned tequila 50 times.
Okay, I'm making sure.
No, I'm going to have some tequila. Hey, Zeus, you in on that one? We'll have some wine, do some toast, and hear some good crime stories from these.
So, was that right then? Is that case in the car? Is that?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, there's a case, but I'd have to have something before that. But no, I've got that ready.
That's great.
I'm working out all the details with Gil and Tom Lang. We're going to get these two legends in here. These two superstars, man. And we're just going to, I want to talk to them about other cases. I want to talk to them about some of these other cases around the country, right? And some of the other ones that they covered that maybe didn't get the headlines, but there's a story behind every one of them. Those two guys' memory is just insane.
Well, I hope you know that this show has just been very impactful for people. As a matter of fact, because of our show, I'll be speaking to detectives, young and old, a comparison, up at Seaside near Carmel, California, coming up soon.
What's the deal? So they're flying you up there or bringing you up there, and you're going to be like a keynote speaker?
One of the speakers.
That's
I'll be
amazing.
a speaker. So, and Tom Lang will be there also.
Wow. So what are you going to do? Are you just going to tell your story? Are you going to take a Q&A or what?
That's going to be my story, but a Q&A also. And I think I noticed that this police force of Seaside follow our show. Follow me on Instagram, and it's going to be a great time.
Yeah. No, good. When is that?
It'll be coming up in September.
Great. Is that before or after you get murdered by aliens?
Yeah, I don't know that, but I finished also. I'll be seeing my story in Germany, in Spain, in Portugal, in Switzerland, the Kaelin name, with a German RTL.
How'd that go that day?
Radio, television, Luxembourg.
Did they ask you anything different?
Amazing.
You went to some of the sites, right?
Yeah, went to the sites. Their fascination, it turned out to be fantastic because the gentleman, the interviewer who was very popular in Germany, Dominic, he loved it, and he loved the insight, and we did a lot of things a little bit different. I won't get into it, but one of the things I'll tell you is we went to Rockingham, and the owner of the house, the person that does all the electrical work and does that came out, and he said, and this is all by chance, he had long blonde hair, and he said he was Kato. That is always Kato. And then when he met me, like I said, this will be in German TV, he went crazy. He could not believe the meeting. All on
You
tape.
got to be kidding.
I'm not kidding you. He works on the property.
Okay.
And and he just had, so we hugged and we knew some of the same people. It was an amazing
You
story.
can't make that
No.
up. I mean, that's insane.
Not made up.
How
It
big
was
of a production
amazing.
was it? A lot of cameras? I mean, was it a nice...
It was, but it was, I feel sorry for the camera guy. He had a huge camera, sound. It was, and the reporter, and he's a famous reporter. Dominic Mauer.
Okay, I can't wait for that. Whenever that airs, we're going to put it on our channel.
Oh,
okay.
and by the way, I'll be speaking in German.
Come on.
Yeah.
Can you speak German?
No, it's all.
Oh, they're going to
dubbed
dub
in
it.
German.
Okay.
Yeah,
They're
German,
going to use
but
AI
Spain.
with your voice?
Exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I'll never forget Daryl Hammond. I saw him at the Tempe Improv in Tempe, Arizona, like probably 20 years ago. And he had the funniest joke because he was talking about his wife being German. And I'm part German. I'm part German and Polish, by the way. Oh. Yes. And
Swiss German
so
and
he's
Polish.
talking about, and Daryl Hammond's going, my wife's German. She's just, it's just not a sexy language. It's just like, it's hard to get in the mood. Like, I can tell my wife, she's ready, to get after it, when she'll grab you by the shoulders and go, Dobenspiegen, Hagenspugen. It's like, let's get it on. All right. If you follow these cases that Kato and I uncover, we have the best guests. There's nobody that brings you true crime content anywhere like the K-Train and I do right here on Tom Zenner Scandal. So next step, we are starting a membership. We've been holding off. There's a lot of people that have been coming us for a very long time. How would you like to have a little more K-Train in your life? We are going to give you bonus episodes. We're going to release episodes early for our members with extended coverage. We're going to do live Q&As. You can ask Kato questions that are burning. You can ask me questions about these tours that we go on, how we put this show together, everything about what we've got going with this show. We're going to have 2 tiers. We're going to make it super simple, and there will be no membership on YouTube that packs as much value into it as much as we will, because it's very important for Kato and I to take you inside these stories. We love sharing them. We want to turn this into one of the top true crime podcasts in the world. We're on our way. This is going to be, and it's on its way to being a YouTube powerhouse. So come along with us. We have so much stuff that we're going to unleash in this thing. We're going to announce the details of how you can sign up very, very soon. Follow our community page for more details, because the membership, the K-Train and TZ, yeah, you can get more of us and stuff that you never thought you'd have access to.
T-shirt. I want a T-shirt.
Kato, would you wear a onesie? Would you wear, if we had our own merch for a onesie, how much would I have to pay you to do that?
Well, we'll talk about it. Do you know my clothes? Well, we'll get into that whole thing. I used to have clothing line called Slacker. We'll show you that later.
All right. Okay. So it's all coming. So watch for the official announcement of when we start this membership, because it's coming very, very soon. There's a few other big announcements that are going to be coming. Okay. So more episodes next week. Tom Lang, Gil Correa. We got the whole shebang going.
Love it.
You good? For Zeus, for the one and only K-Train, I'm Tom Zenner. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you very, very soon.